So I am working on my game called unearth, which is like a Half-Life but with robots. And of course, as for any FPS game, enemies are a crucial part of the gameplay, because without the enemies, this is not a shooter anymore. But at first, we need to understand what a smart enemy even means. Let's start with they don't do strange stuff like standing in T-pose and flying or moving in this pose. They should not glitch through fins and fly away. It's a bug, not a feature. Okay, the most important thing that I learned by watching a bunch of enemy design and AI videos is that they don't need to be smart, but they need to just look like they are smart. Everything starts in an engine with the node AI move tool. It makes the enemy move to some locations that we can specify. But before that, we need a thing called an AI controller and assigned to the enemy character. The next important thing is the perception of the enemy. Like, basically we just adding artificial eyes and ears. We just have some spheres for each of the senses, and if the play overlaps, then the enemy can see you actually. But the next question is how we can put this together and make at least good enemy. So there's a lot of types of this system, but the most common are state machines and behavior trees. Of course, I will not be explaining them in details, but I just went with using behavior trees. And to make this work, we need to create two things. First a behavior tree and a blackboard. It's called a tree because with this term we call the structure that starts with only one thing and then underneath can be unlimited. The blackboard thing we are using to store some variables. So everything starts with a root. Then we can use a selector, which is doing one thing or another. For instance, the enemy can patrol or attack. And then we can add a blackboard value. Like if the enemy can see you, he starts to attack. Another important node is a sequence. It's similar to selector, but it does everything from the left to right. For instance, the enemy can run and shoot at the same time. One more important thing that we need is called task. This is actual things that enemies will be doing. And one more thing is called environment query. And it sounds pretty fancy, but it just generates points around the context. Like the player, the enemy, and then the enemy can use these points to move around. Actually, before doing all of that, we need to add a nav mesh to the level, which is short for a navigation mesh. To put it simply, just showing where the enemy can move to. The thing is that, of course, now I know about this stuff, but the moment I started to make the first enemies, I had no idea how to make them. But before that, let me show you one thing, this button, which is really important. So, enemies. I even started with these silly enemies. There were a few types of them actually. Melee enemies, projectile enemies, and I even tried to make a flying enemies. Then I made the second version, which is a little bit better. And at the time I started to create models for them. But after that I made one which was even better. Everything was great up to one moment when I started to create different enemy types. Because in this game I want to have like 5 enemy types and 4 bosses. So as it turned out, I just need to copy every 9 times. But the worst thing is when I need to fix a bug in these AI systems, I need to do that 9 times. And they get stuck pretty much every moment when they don't see the player who is shooting at them. So I scrapped everything and started from scratch. Actually, I found a tutorial series which is just amazing. And in this new AI system, I decided to make a new, or for some enemies, updated models. So I have all of these enemies, which I don't really have a name. Can you suggest some names? Anyway, let's talk about how they work. The first one is a mini robot, and he's a ranged enemy with a laser attack. When his health gets low, he starts to hide from the player. And with this enemy, I started to add in a moral choice. Second, Fin Robot. The next enemy is similar, but he has a wheel. He has this shield and shoots 3 shots at once. Another one is a sphere that turns invincible when it's closed when you shoot at it. It's shooting 4 bullets at one time. The next enemy that I've made was the first boss. He is ranged enemy too, but he attacks with electricity charge. So this one is combined enemy. When you come close, she is attacking with a laser sword, but when you far, she is throwing some laser grenades. And the last boss, his name is Robert. He's a combined enemy. When you come close, he attacks with a laser sword, but has much higher damage than the previous boss. When you're far away, he shoots Hammerly rockets from his hand. But when his health getting pretty low, he is shooting rockets from the barrel too. And one more boss, who at first was just one more enemy type, but when you have many of them, the game gets too difficult. And he is only one fully melee enemy type. But the main feature of this robot is he can teleport in front of you or into the back and perform his attack. By design he is similar to the Finn robot, but he is invisible. And when you shoot at him, he becomes visible for some time. It's just a turret. It is shooting 2 bullets at a time. And the last one is security cameras. And they are basically not enemies, but you can still shoot them. So that's all enemies that I have. Of course, this video is making this scene much simpler than they actually are. So if you're all about high quality games, that if you haven't already done it, please wishlist the game. By the way, I've made a whole episode about the 2 years of development of this beautiful game. And I think you will enjoy it. Just click here.